Hi, everyone. This is Steve Petty. I'm the president and CEO of the Lynn Institute for Healthcare Research. I am here with my colleague, Carlos Blanco, who is the president and CEO of the Lynn Health Science Institute, and Dr. Charles Lunn, the medical director for Centennial Health. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the trials for the COVID vaccine and the vaccine that was done here with LISI, which is the Lynn Health Science Institute, which Mr. Blanco is going to talk about. And then Dr. Lunn is going to talk a little bit about what his thoughts are as a physician and the importance for everyone to get vaccinated so we can combat this pandemic. First of all, I'm going to turn it over to Carlos. Carlos, your organization, our sister organization, has been doing the COVID trials for quite a while. And this was in Oklahoma, so we should be very proud that this is global and that you have been involved in so many of the trials like Moderna and Pfizer. What can you talk about as far as the safety of the trials? Because a lot of people are saying, they happened really fast. Were there any shortcuts taken? And how do you tell people in the community how good these are and why we needed to do it so quickly?
Sure. So thank you, Steve. I think that one of the things that's really important to note, because you hear how fast these vaccines were developed, there's two things that are relatively important to know here. Number one is that the mRNA technology it is not a brand new technology. It's about a decade old. And in this situation, we were very lucky that the COVID-19 virus fit very well with that delivery system, that technology, in order to develop a vaccine. So we were lucky on the development side. In terms of the clinical trial side, these trials were not shortened at all. They were done with the same careful, meticulous way that we conduct all of our trials. And at the Lynn Health Science Institute, we conducted 1,200 trials. So we certainly have experience in being able to do the clinical trials. And this trial was no different. So those 2 points. One, the technology is not this brand new technology that should scare anyone. Number two, the trials were not rushed. They were done, and those trials are still underway. The Pfizer and Moderna trials are still underway. We had a tremendous response from our Oklahomans, fellow Oklahomans, who really stepped up, and we had between 6,500 and 7,000 responses to fill 800 slots for the Pfizer and Moderna trials. So Oklahomans, as always, when we need to get a job done, we're the first ones to step up, and we got it done. So I thank everyone who participated. In terms of safety, these are appear to be extraordinarily safe vaccines. They are very efficacious. Both Moderna and Pfizer are about 95% effective, which is just fabulous. I mean, I can't tell you how miraculous those numbers are. They're really good.
How is that, Carlos, when you say 95% compared to like a flu vaccine or polio or anything else that you've mentioned in the past? How's that?
Absolutely. Well, the flu vaccines, because there's so many different strains, can really vary from year to year in terms of effectiveness. And if we get a flu vaccine that's 50 or 60% effective, that's incredible. They're usually in the 42 range, something like that. The polio vaccine, probably one of our most successful vaccines ever, was about 99% effective. The measles vaccine, the later version, was 96% effective. So to have a COVID-19 vaccine that is 95% effective is just astounding. It's wonderful. I think it's important to note that the side effects for these vaccinations, and there's 2 vaccinations given about between 21 and 28 days apart. After the first vaccination, you'll probably experience some redness and swelling at the injection site, and then at the second vaccination, which is really a booster, it really kicks in the immune system. You can expect to see a little fatigue. We had a few of our volunteers who had a light fever, less than 100 degrees, but for less than 8 hours. So very, very mild from both the first and second vaccination.
And Carlos, you and I have talked in the past, and you mentioned the word clean vaccine. That was new to me what is that mean when you're talking about a vaccine as compared to some of the other vaccines that are out there?
Sure. Many times when we create vaccines, we have to add additional elements, additional chemicals to stabilize the vaccine and make sure that it doesn't degrade over time or have or break down over a length of time. These vaccines are not like that. And neither the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine, we're really just dealing with the complex proteins that make up the mRNA and some fats that have been included um, uh, as part of the vaccine to help your body absorb it. So, but beyond that, there's very little in the vaccination besides exactly what we want in it. So when we say clean, we mean there's not additional stabilizers and things like that in the vaccine.
Got you. And you mentioned that there's still trials going on. Why, if we've already got a vaccine, why in this first phase, why are we still doing trials if it's already being distributed and injected into the first wave of healthcare workers and such?
Great question. Great question. The reason is because both Pfizer and Moderna have only committed about 100 million vaccines to the U.S. so far. So we need additional makers to be able to provide more vaccines. So we have just started the Janssen trial today in Oklahoma City, and we're recruiting patients for that study. But the reason is we just need more vaccine manufacturers so we can get more vaccine. Because remember, 200 million doses, when you think that you have to have two shots, it's only covering 100 million Americans, and there's 320 million of us.
Right. Great. That's great. So when we're talking about this will be going on. This is a process that will continue to improve on, and these other manufacturers from pharmaceutical companies will continue so we can have that amount of vaccine that's going to be needed to help out.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We need the estimates are really that we're probably going to need another two manufacturers to have emergency use authorization approval. And we expect Moderna to be approved today if everything goes right. And then that will bring their doses on board in terms of getting folks in Oklahoma some more vaccinated. Right now, we're doing frontline workers.
Gotcha. Great. I appreciate that. As I mentioned, we've had Dr. Charles Lunn. He is the medical director for Centennial Health, one of our great partners. Dr. Lunn, what do you think? How is, as a physician practicing for many years, what is your confidence level in the vaccine process across the country? And has it taken place properly in your mind as a physician and a scientist yourself?
Yes, it has, and I really do appreciate the comments that Carlos is. Every step in this manufacture of this vaccine and production has been clear. We've been told from the top down how it's made, what is safety, how many people have been in trials, explain why and how we've gotten this vaccine to the population quickly. It just in my world, vaccines are so important. I don't treat tetanus. I've never treated tetanus. I've seen one case of measles in my life. The only case of mumps I've seen is when I had it. Between clean water and vaccinations, that's what's really helped the American population live so long. One thing, and I just note that Carlos was talking about these immediate side effects of having a vaccination. I vaccinate children. Every mother knows to give their child Tylenol and Benadryl before they show up. If we don't have a problem doing that to 3-month-olds, I don't know why we'd have a problem doing that to 60-year-olds.
Yeah, that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Lunn, from your perspective, from the medical perspective, what information do the public need to consider when they're deciding whether or not that they want to get this vaccine? What do you want them to know, especially those that are unfortunately, the vaccine has become very political, and there's a lot of misinformation. What do you think people need to know about getting this vaccine?
First thing is that the people are not being experimented on. My population of people really, 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 they always bring up Tuskegee. They always bring up the things and the unfairness that I've witnessed in 30 years of practice. These trials have been equitable. The doses have been equitable. We are not experimenting. We or the general medical population is not experimenting. We're saving lives. Right now, our hospital system is at capacity. And without the vaccine, it's going to remain at capacity. And when it does, it will fatigue. And those most vulnerable, those who are the baseline sickest, will suffer. Right now, I suffer from the fact that I have patients not coming in for routine appointments because they're afraid of getting the virus. People want to socialize. They want to get back to what they were doing before. You cannot do that without a vaccine. I have a mother that's going to get a surgery next month. She's afraid that she'll catch the virus during surgery. There's so many reasons to get the vaccine and so little reasons not to get the vaccine. If I had that vaccine, right, if I was in the room with Carlos right now and he had a vaccine, I'd pull up my shirt and let him, shoot me once or twice, put some shit on it, make sure it works good.
I agree. I agree.
Dr. Lunn, you brought up a really interesting when you talked about Tuskegee and the trust factor with the African American population and minorities in general. What would you say? You kind of touched on it with this group that sometimes is hesitant to do anything with the word trial in it because of the past. What would you say to those folks that are watching?
Well, one of those are, first off, I would say those are real fears. Yeah. Those are things that have happened and so in some instances still continue to happen. Sure. But here's the deal. I treat a large population of African American folks and other minorities. It's a shame that I have a drug or some process that comes out that we've not had a large segment of the population included. So basically, when the new drug comes out, the trial begins when it's hitting the market. We need to have a diverse population in clinical trials. I actually do, I'm a principal investigator for another institution, and the principal investigators take it serious on safety. Clinical trials are very, very, very safe. There's so much redundancy and safety that it's sometimes monotonous and boring on, are you okay? Can we look out for you a little further?
Right.
Steve, go ahead. Let me add to that because Dr. Lunn is exactly right. We were very careful in both the Moderna and Pfizer trial to really mimic our population in Oklahoma City in terms of diversification between Caucasians and African Americans and Hispanics to make sure that we had the right balance of people. So that is absolutely critical. Number two, he's absolutely right that we don't have enough participations, certainly from, I'm a Hispanic, and from my community, we don't have enough Hispanics in clinical trials because there are fears there. There's fear in the African American community, again, for a lot of historical reasons, but trials today are remarkably different. The safeguards that are in place today in terms of safety are night and day. So I would certainly encourage everyone, we have to make sure that these vaccines work for all of us. They have to work for Hispanics and Caucasians, everybody. So for that to happen, we need folks to continue to volunteer for trials. Absolutely.
Thank you for that, Carlos. Dr. Lunn, what will happen if people don't get vaccinated because of some of this stigma that's come up for the past and just general, I'm not going to do it because it happened too quick, kind of like what we talked about. What's your thoughts?
Well, my thinking is looking down the road for 6 months. There's going to be basically segregation and people vaccinated and not vaccinated. I've already had a patient who's signed up for end of the year 2021 cruise. On it stipulates that you must be vaccinated. When I get vaccinated, I'm not exactly going to go out to the clubs, but I won't be afraid. Vacations. Going to the doctor, hugging your grandchildren hugging you. There's so many things that we've given up. And the only way to get back to that is to do to get the vaccinations. And we've gotten better at saving lives when people who have corona. But I just had a patient, they told me she passed today. You know, so.
And unfortunately, we're hearing that a lot. A lot of prominent folks, not only in Oklahoma City, that a lot of us are aware of, but of course nationwide and globally. But Dr. Lunn, what is your hope? You know, once we get the vaccine out there, how will it impact life and health going forward? In your thought as a physician, once this is out there and a lot of the general public have been vaccinated?
Well, what's happening is we've already seen the cracks in the healthcare system. We've seen the way it has affected different communities. So once we get this vaccine, we can start safely addressing those inequities. And unfortunately, I mean, we've had 300,000 people die to point out that the American healthcare system is broken. It needs fixes at every level. We've got to get the vaccine and get people safe so that we can fix the system.
So unfortunately, because of this happened globally and what we've seen, maybe some good can come from it with, as you said, the cracks in the healthcare system, that something like this doesn't happen again, even on a smaller scale, that maybe some benefit will come, not only that we have a vaccine, but also to look at the systemic side of healthcare in general.
Yes, I mean, and just to the point, I've actually had more patients die because of COVID than COVID. You know, people who were delayed in healthcare, people who didn't get a procedure that they were supposed to get. These are cracks that it didn't take much other than a scare.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. Carlos, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, just to reiterate, another important, to make an important point, if we don't have enough of the population vaccinated, in other words, if we don't reach that herd or vaccine-induced herd immunity, right, we're going to be doing this next year and the year after that and the year after that, and it won't go away. If you think about it, we've had 300,000 Americans die, about 10 million exposed. Think about it. We have a population of 320 million Americans. It has a long way to go. It can spread for years if we don't do something now. And all of us, as Oklahomans and Americans and as global citizens, are going to have an opportunity to bring this to an end if we just do our part. Get vaccinated, get our families vaccinated, for ourselves, like Dr. Lunn was saying, and then for the rest of the world. Nobody wants to keep doing this. Nobody wants to see these deaths go on. So I would just implore Oklahomans, when there's a vaccine available, please take it.
You're here.
Good words. Good words. Any final thoughts, gentlemen? Thank you so much for the information. Dr. Lunn, any final thoughts?
No, just get vaccinated, and you know, and yes, it's gonna hurt. Okay.
Sometimes things have to hurt, right?
Yeah.
We want to thank both Dr. Charles Lunn, the medical director for Centennial Health, and my colleague, Carlos Blanco, the president and CEO of the Lynn Health Institute. Thank you for watching. If you have any other questions or interested in information about the trials or getting vaccinated, please don't hesitate to let us know. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.